True. All right, let's get started because nobody on this call came to hear us talk about the fall. And we're excited to lead this conversation. So I have somebody with me. So I guess for those who don't know me, my name is Danielle Sullivan. I'm the team leader here up at Keller Williams Elevate and Keller Williams Living. And I brought somebody on today. Actually, because we were having a conversation about this maybe about a month ago, and it felt timely to bring it into a training session. So, Sean, can you tell everybody who you are, what you do, how long you've been in real estate?
Sure. So my name is Sean Castolo. Good to see everybody today. I've been in real estate for about 3 years now, and we moved here. We relocated from West Palm Beach, Florida, about that time to be closer to family. And before we moved here, I worked in corporate relations for Tribune Company, and so that was based out of Chicago, but we had an office in Fort Lauderdale and Orlando, and that was kind of my area that I would have offices in. But then sometimes, depending on the market or what we were doing from a company standpoint, I could be in LA or New York or Chicago or wherever the company needed us. So when we were moving here, we were changing things up, and one of the things we changed was my career path. So that was an interesting move, or has been an interesting move.
Yeah. So from Florida here, quit your job, did real estate, went through the classes,
Yep.
came in here, fire hose full of information. And I think the conversation today is really like going back a few weeks when we were talking, it was um everybody thinks when they get into real estate, and even if you've been in real estate for years, that you've got to learn and relearn all of these, what we would consider sales skills, right? Or like hard sales skills or closing skills.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that we all have past lives and past experiences that we can pull from and can help us sort of transition into the business. And so Yitka loves your IKEA bookshelves.
Good.
And so I guess with that, can you walk us through a little bit, like talk to us about your experience when you came into real estate and maybe when you came to the realization that like, wait a minute, just because I don't know the housing side of things and how to sell people, I can actually utilize like me as a human being and the soft skills that I have versus the sales skills to help me find success. Like, what did that path look like for you?
Sure. So I think one of the things, like I had an awakening in my third year. So that sounds kind of, some people say that that seems fast, but to me it seems kind of slow, but it was like an aha moment. So when I started, I wasn't with KW my first year. And the office that I was in, I was the rookie of the year. So I thought that I was doing things right, but not until I got to the KW living office that I realized like there was more to real estate than potentially where I was. However, still in that mindset, I was a solo agent. And real estate could be like a very isolated solo box that you could be in. Even if you're on a team, you could be that way. And so for me, I kind of would get tripped up on a lot of the shiny objects, right? So things that would like pop up that would say things like, "Oh, this if you did this, or you got coached by so and so, or if you just bought this widget, or if you built your own website, or whatever else." You can just keep going down that rabbit hole. And I followed that path because I thought like, okay, well, yeah, if I just spend $4,000 and build my own website, it'll be great, and that's what I should do.
Like
Um,
every new agent, by the way, or every agent, like I think like as soon as you hit a ceiling, you're like, okay, how do I break through the next ceiling? Oh, I've got to go spend $4,000 on a website, or like, oh, I've got to
exactly,
go do this thing, or I've got to get this thing in order to get to the next level. So new agents, yes, and every time you go to break through that next ceiling, I feel like we do this.
for sure. So you just start to look at those things that you're doing, and then, like I said, in my third year, I just kind of had like the epiphany moment of like, because I like what Danielle and I were talking about was like the feelings that are in place. So when you go through Hondros is where I went. So when you went through the school, I was sitting in a room where there was 19-year-olds. There were people my age. There were people who were transitioning careers, people who were coming out of retirement, people who were going into retirement. It was a whole gamut of people. But one of the things that I took away from that was that they were teaching us how to make $100,000. And it was pivotal, right? Because that was the day everybody like really woke up and tuned in. And I remember the professor standing in the front, and it was like this very quick, thing. And I got it that it was $100,000 was easy math for everyone can kind of do, right? But $10,000, and I think I said to Danielle, it was also easy math, and that's something that I felt like they were doing a disservice right off the bat because people were like, "Oh, all I got to do is hold, 15 open houses and get two buyers for every one of them, and get 12 listings from my uncle." And right there, I'm going to be, making 100,000. So kind of what she and I started talking about was people I felt like didn't come into the industry fully prepared of what it meant to be a CEO. You take the class, you get licensed, then you jump in, and it's kind of like, where do you go next? But for me, I kind of hit that third year moment where I was thinking to myself, okay, what did I do in the past? Because I was intimidated. And I'll use a like an example. Um, Luxury real estate, for example. When you go talk to a luxury agent, oftentimes, they'll they'll talk to you about it, but then they kind of say like, oh, but you got to sell 7 luxury listings or whatever the deal might be now, and then you can be considered a luxury agent. And in my brain always kept saying, well, if I sell 7 homes in the luxury price range, well then, I need the help now, or like the driving the roadmap now, not after I've already done it. And so it kind of set me up where my brain was kind of going back to like, oh, you can't do it. So, it was a new field for me. It was out of my comfort zone, and I just started going to like a not like a spiral downward, but like in a spiraling of like, okay, I'm not going to be able to aspire to that. But then I had the epiphany of where, in my past life, I worked for a company where I was in rooms with people who were decision makers. We were in the process of making large deals. I was able to negotiate at a different level. So I wasn't selling a house or listing, doing a listing appointment, but we were out in the market buying media companies or selling media companies. And these were large scale transactions that would take place. And then I just realized like I can do it. So I kind of like leaned into like what I knew, and then it became a sense of like negotiation is just negotiation, whether it's a house or not.
Mhm.
So Dana can attest to my numbers this year, like kind of took a jump from where they've been, in the past couple of years here at KW because my mindset changed. Um, but it kind of went into itself of like, it doesn't make a difference if you're a stay-at-home parent or not. You've managed your home. So you know how to negotiate with your 2-year-old. You know how to negotiate with your boss. You know how to get things done, how to move the ball forward. And it's those skills that we have that I think sometimes when we get into real estate that we don't lean into those skills because we kind of feel like, oh, well, we're in a new industry or we're in a new bubble. And from that standpoint, we kind of go into that self-doubt. And so the reason that we were actually talking is the number, and I can't remember if it's right. So somebody out here, correct me if I say it wrong, but whether it was at Hondros or even in some of our meetings and stuff like that, people will tout 85% of real estate agents don't make it or something like that.
87, but yes.
87? Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So 87% of real estate agents don't make it. And like I was saying, for me, like that's a horrible thing from an industry perspective, like that we suck people in to this business and then we like tout it to ourselves like, hey, look, and I know how it's supposed to make us feel of like, oh,
Sure.
you're at the top 10, 12% or whatever. Good for you. You made it. But to me, I'm like, what are we doing that 87% of people are like falling off? And it's not because they just can't sell a house. It's because when they're walking into this market or into this new career path, that they're not really geared up to be like what a CEO is
Well,
or
and
what
like
it might
leaning
be.
into their superpowers, right? Like I
Or leaning
think
into superpowers.
you talk to anybody, they like most of the time, if they're influential and they're good at the negotiation side of things and they can influence others to follow them, they always say, like, this is my superpower. Like this
Right.
one thing. It's all different, but like everybody leans. And when I think when sometimes when you come into real estate where you hit that ceiling, you're like, all right, like this is what the MREA says, right? Or like this is what my coach says that I have to do. And yet you're like going off of the disc profile, like you are very different and your superpowers, Sean, are different than mine, and mine are different from Mark's probably, and Mark's are different from Tyler, right? And so like I guess leaning into that, what did that look like for you? Like, did you stop doing certain things in your business and start doing other things in your business when you had that aha moment?
Yeah, so I think again, somewhere down deep inside, everybody knows what their superpower is or what they can do.
Mhm.
So while this is a transient market, like for myself, where it's a second career, right? So I had some of those abilities in my past life that I thought might have gone by the wayside. So what I did in that third year, I cut ties with the coaching company who's doing it. And this is my thing. So I'm not recommending that anybody just go, if you have a coach, you cut it. But for right now, for me, I released those coaching sessions and I leaned into our team. So I joined a team and I leaned into our team and what they were, the resources that they had. I got rid of my website. So all of those little shiny things that I had collected over the past 2 or so years, I kind of just released. And it was just a fresh start because a lot of times it could be self-consuming for us of, you got to have 5 posts a day on Instagram. You've got to be engaged. But the reality of it is you have to be out there grinding as well. So at that point in that third year, when I got rid of that stuff, it was freeing for me and I was able to kind of, step up and lean into what I knew. So for example, I got a lead and the person they were a high ticket item that was coming from New York. I actually thought that it was a joke when it came through, but it wasn't. But the reality of it was that's when that phone call was the one that I realized like, okay, I can fully lean into this now and pick up the phone and just start talking to these people and building rapport. Because if you build rapport, for at least me, I felt like if I built rapport with them and while they were here and I serviced what their needs were and I showed them value, it would be rare that people that they would come and ask me, have you ever sold $1 million house in Pepper Pike before? Like that's what I think kind of holds us up. Some people do ask that question. Have you ever sold $1 million house in Pepper Pike? Well, you have to kind of be honest, right? Or not, but be honest. But in this case, these people, they leaned into
The
the
trust.
side of like building a relationship and they saw value in what I was doing. So at the end of the day, I was able to keep them on the hook. They were moving here from New York. He's a doctor, but we bought a piece of land with a house on it that they're going to build a new home with old world custom homes. So I got a piece of that. That house is sold. They bought a temporary home in Chagrin Falls that they're going to live in for 18 months, and then we're going to list it when they move out into their new home. So it was just the ability to not be afraid of that high price point and to walk in with confidence. So, what did that look like for me? The first house that we went to look at, remember they were transitioning here from New York. So, I was here, they weren't. I was able to tour the house, learn the finishes, able to speak to them in a way that they would understand what it was. So, I spent a little bit extra time doing it. They felt comfortable that I knew what I was talking about, and then we moved forward. But that's how I would have done our transactions before in my past life, right? So if we were going to be acquiring something, you do your research on it, you figure out the strengths and the weaknesses of it, and then you speak honestly to the client. So we didn't buy that first house, but 6 months later, we ended up buying 2 homes, and then, like I said, working with Old World Custom Homes for their new build.
And I
So
think you said something like so important. You said one, they leaned into the trust and the relationship, but two, you said you were so confident in like your ability versus like it doesn't always have to be your ability in real estate. It's just like your ability in yourself to come through and do the thing. So like and if you're taking notes and if you want a good book to read, I read a book about a year ago and it's called Be the Unicorn and it's by William Vanderhaven, something like that. My team and I read it and it gives you basically 12 soft skills that in any given industry sets you apart from other people. And all of those soft skills come into real estate as well. So we did this with our team, but it is things like building trust with people and communication. It's empathy and emotional intelligence, right? So I always tell people when I meet with them that there's two people that do very, very well in real estate, in my opinion, that you don't always assume will do very well, and it's teachers and nurses. And I say that to people even if they're not teachers and nurses. So I'm not just saying that to them. And it's because they already have like the empathy, they have the problem solving, like they have that emotional intelligence, they have a patience level, right? And so, like, really, a lot again, people come into this not knowing real estate, but you can learn real estate. ChatGPT will teach you real estate, I promise you. You can't teach people emotional intelligence. You can't teach people problem solving. You can't teach people how to adapt and how to do those things, right, Sean? And so, like, I think what you're doing is building confidence within yourself to be able to help people. And then, like, the real estate comes along with it. Yes?
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're always on, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interview until you become uh, like a friend. And that's kind of what ended up happening in the relationship because they're looking at you for some sort of, at the beginning, it's just like any sort of friendship, right? You don't know each other, you're kind of dancing with each other, seeing what's going to happen. But then at the end of it, they're looking at you as an advisor and they're seeking out your true advice and taking your advice of what it might be worth. So walking away from a deal or leaning in on one, you start to build that relationship. The interesting thing too is you're always on display. So that couple who was moving here, the husband's parents live in Chagrin Falls, and they were the harder part of my interview than the actual clients were. So I dealt with them a lot more than I dealt with their children because they were in New York. So when I would go out on showings, it was mostly with a mother or a father or both. And we kind of hit it off. We had some commonalities and again built that rapport, because at any one moment, it was like a four-section decision-making process. So that's what I said, like lean in. We all talked about children and stuff along those lines. I mean, that's a great example too. If people have got more than one kid, you're negotiating all the time, for a toy to be transferred to another kid or screaming to stop or whatnot. So it's all those skills that we have inside of us and just kind of taking them and putting them to the forefront. I think the sooner we realize that we have those abilities, the better we are in the field because then you can see the tunnel has a light at the end.
Sean, I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't send over to you beforehand, so don't think that you have to have the answer. But do you ever find yourself like, have you pulled things from your last career as far as like, I'm going to concentrate on two, which is like negotiation and influence over people? Have you pulled anything from your last career that you use in this? And I'm asking for a reason because I have a follow-up here. But is there
Okay.
anything like that you've tactically pulled from from life or from your last career outside of the kids, obviously, with
Yep.
negotiation or influence that you utilize or like a certain specific sentence that you use with clients? Talk to us about that.
Sure. I think, everything you kind of read or hear, and we do a lot of that in real estate, is you have a very short window of time to get that rapport, somebody on your side. So it's the same for me when I was in the business side of the world. One of the things that I would say that I use with my clients is what I used to use with my managers above me. So you got trying to manage above. When you learn their objectives very quickly and what moves their passion points or what gets them excited, then you can easily move your agenda to the forefront alongside of theirs, even if it might be counter to what they want to do. If you're able to identify with them and then succinctly line up with your client, or my past life with a manager or director or VP or whoever it might be, um, then my my goal there was to basically win the day. And then when we came back to any sort of issue or concern, I was able to have that rapport. So just going back to that, managing up. So my clients became my director above me, which basically they are, right? They're our director. And sometimes we go through a day with them and you're like, we're gonna go see six houses I know that they hate. But we've got to go see it, especially at the very beginning.
Sure.
As the time goes on, then they trust me more. But right at the very beginning, if I start resisting to them and saying like, "Oh, you're not gonna like that house. It's not gonna work for you. The backyard stinks. It's not what you need or not what you want." They just see me as a no sayer or like a non-starter, and it kind of irritates them. But when we
Yeah.
walk through it, and then they kind of see it for themselves, and you can kind of, like I said, come alongside of that and say, "Oh, but you know what? There's a house that we can go see, that's got a great backyard. It's not exactly." The color, or it doesn't have six bedrooms, that it's five bedrooms, or whatever it might be. They start to lean into what you're saying a little bit more and trust what you're doing.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I think so this literally came up on Tuesday of this week. So obviously, in a leadership position, part of our job is to help grow our market center, which means talking to a lot of agents. And I was talking to an agent on Tuesday about our company, and he like was taking some notes, but he kept writing down the same sentence, and the sentence was four words, and it was, "I think you should." And he kept writing it down, and I was like, "Why do you keep writing down, I think you should?" And he's like, "Because you keep saying it." And I kept saying those four words, "I think you should." So this is what I said. I think you should interview other brokerages as you're looking to find the best place. I think you should find the best fit for you. I think we should. I think we should walk around. I think you should go and look at training at other brokerages and find, what suits you. I think you should look at teams at other brokerages. Anyways, I didn't realize how much I was saying it. And he said, I need to take this and use this with clients when I'm real estating, right? When I'm doing my business, because it builds so much trust. It's almost like I think you should interview other brokerages, but I think we both know you won't. I think you should interview other listing agents so that you really get a good understanding of what to expect throughout this process. And my hope is by the end of this that you won't, right? And so, like, even those four words, and I didn't even realize that I was saying it so much. Maybe I was saying it too much, but I didn't realize how many times I said, "Hey, I think you should go and do that." And because I said those things, I don't know, I just think it like it takes people off of the defense very quickly. It makes them think that they have options. And so when you do those things with sellers, with buyers, I think you should talk to other agents and ask them what their marketing looks like. I think you should talk to other agents and ask them if they've ever sold $1 million house in Pepper Pike, right? Like, I think even small things like that, to your point, Sean, allows you to build trust, take people off the defense, make them think that they're in charge, and then to your point, like manage up a little bit with them.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like the unexpected, right? So if you do this interview with somebody and it's to list their home or to take them out to show them homes, and then you say, I think you should go talk to a few other agents. I don't think people are expecting that.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this person is really confident, right? In their skill sets. Like they're sending us off to go do it. But so many times, that's not the case because when you get somebody who comes in, we tend to like become a helicopter parent.
Hmm.
And want to make sure like we know every open house they're going to because there's that trust factor, right? Do we trust them that they're not just going to jump ship with us? Do we trust them that they're not going to go strike a deal with the listing agent? All those little things that could happen. But again, if we trust ourselves a little bit more, then I think you win the day. So, it's like, yes, it's important to manage up. But also too, I see even with seasoned agents, who to me, they should lean into their abilities at certain points too. Like with compensation that comes up, and believing in their skill set and their ability and to not just cut themselves short to win a listing or a deal. You want to show your client the best rate that you can have, and you should be rewarded for the work that you do. And I was in there was a KW agent, um, and she just kind of leaned into me. She's down in the Akron office, but she just kind of leaned in one day and was talking about, how she did things a little bit differently and how she and her clients work together. And if they bought a house or sold a house, she said, I never buy them, I don't buy anybody a gift. If you go to the doctor's office, does a doctor send you a gift basket after, your $100,000 heart surgery?
No.
Which was kind of a little bit eye-opening. So again, not that everybody doesn't have to buy a gift, but that was her strategy and what she did. Now she said that she does gifts for like referrals. So if
Sure.
somebody was to refer something, then she gives them like a nice, gift certificate or whatever. But she was saying, she was just being very nicely saying like, does somebody need another, kitchen towel from me? Probably not. But anyway, but again, it's all she believed in her ability and she's a successful agent and she does things a little bit different. And I think that's also kind of too where we kind of walk down the path of the shiny object. We can spend some time focusing on that gift versus on the quality of what we're doing. So even from
Well,
that
right, and the
perspective,
experience. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
how about give them a great experience and then you don't
exactly.
have to give them a gift? Like, you only
Right.
have to give them a gift going forward. You only have to give them a gift if you gave them a bad experience, right? Like, have that mindset a little bit. Like, give them a great experience, then you have to
Yeah.
do things
And
different.
you're with them, most of the time when you're doing a transaction with somebody, you're with them for a long period of time. So, I know when I got licensed, people would say to me like, "Oh, so sorry for you." 2 years ago, if you got licensed, a paper clip could have sold a house. And of course, that was a different time. But the reality of it is, and as we moved, the buyer broker agreement came to play, and how we negotiate our skill set and what we put out there, because it's important that we build those boundaries with people. They respect that, right? So we know some agents who will answer the phone, till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And we know some agents who say like, hey, 7 o'clock at night, that's my time. Most of the time when you're with a client though, they should know you. So if they don't know you have a spouse or a significant other or a child or whatever, or that you play rugby or something, then you're not doing your job of advocating of who you are. They should know some of those things about you too, so that those boundaries are set. Again, when you start, you want to, that's kind of like the mindset of like a new agent is like, oh, you've got to be on call all the time, because you've got to sit at the front desk, you've got to prospect, you've got to, this is how it's done. But, again, for me, I did that. Like I ran around, I did postcards and whatever. And, at the end of the day too, it's just consistency.
Right. Well, and I think it's finding something that you're good at, right? Like, and again, like leaning into that, like what I would consider it's a soft skill, but I would also say it's like a superpower. Okay, so my next question is maybe this was on here, but I just thought about it, so I wrote it down. How do you identify like your superpower? How do you identify your soft skill? So, like, one of my ideas, and Sean, I'll let you kind of hit this as well, is like looking at your disc and understanding where you're at. Are you a high D? Are you a high I? Are you an SC? Like figuring out where your superpower is and what you're really good at, and then honing into that. I would also say, like, where do you get your energy from? Do you get your energy when you're one to one with people? Do you get your energy in front of a room with people? Do you get your energy from phone conversations and connection? Like, where do you get your energy from? Where are you most happy? And then really like lean into, in my opinion, like lead generation activities that sort of surround those things. So, Sean, I guess, like, how do you identify your soft skills, or do you have um, any encouragement for somebody to figure out like what their soft skills are?
Sure. Well, I'm going to talk about a person in our office, in the living office, and then I'll jump in on myself. But we have a guy named Jordan Sugar who's in our office. He's a runner. So if you follow him on Instagram, right, this guy like wakes up at the crack of dawn and he runs every single day. You know, he goes through pairs of shoes like you read about. But he and I would chat a little bit, and then he wanted to build like a community. And again, if you're on his Instagram page, you're not really seeing much about real estate, but he's leaning into the running thing. Then he started building like a Substack newsletter talking about like running in the neighborhood. And now he's like putting little tidbits in there and getting people to eventually come out and run with him and build like a run club. But that's his superpower, right? It's something he enjoys and he loves to do. And now he's leaning into it to like churn business, right? So he's gonna meet people who identify with him. They can chat about running. And people probably look, if I was like, hey, you want to go for a run? Probably not with me. But with Jordan, you know, he's happy to do that. But on my side, I think my superpower, again, leaning into like my past life was in corporate relations. So I was always out meeting people representing our community. And when I started real estate, one of the things I did take away from my real estate coach, and it's interesting because I think it's on the KW podcast right now, is being the mayor of your town or something along those lines. And in my third year, so I'm always going back to my third year. We'll see what happens in the fourth. But in the third year, like I decided to run for city council because I identified a lot of what real estate was also getting out into your community and becoming the expert in your community. So both running for office and running or seeking real estate business kind of lined up hand in hand. There's nothing better to say I'm more of an expert in the community than to run for office or to sit on city council. Um, Not everybody wants to do that either, right? But the other thing that Danielle and I were talking about was like, myself included, when it was like, oh, you got to go door knocking. That was one of the strategies people would do, and it
For city
sounds so
council or
daunting
for real estate?
for real
Well, both,
estate.
right?
For real
But real
estate, yeah.
estate
Well,
maybe more.
and
Yeah.
how it changed when you found something that was more interesting to you. So in real estate world, it was like, oh, I got to go door knocking. What am I going to do? What community am I going to pick? Well, all of a sudden now I'm running for city council. And I told Danielle, I think this the other day, like I've walked 2 marathons in about a 3-week process. So I've, worn down shoes. I'm out there knocking on doors. I'm meeting with people. They're seeing my face, and because it's something that I want, you know what I'm saying? It's a want,
Mhm.
right? And then it's like, wow, we could all walk our cities because not that everybody wants to, but again, we can all do it. It's doable. In three
Right.
weeks, I've walked the entire city of Twinsburg just about.
Well,
Anyway,
and you also said, like, not to interrupt you, but you also said, like, my job is two things. Like, my job is very similar to real estate because I've got to door knock, talk to people, and then offer them value. And I think sometimes, again, we get so stuck in like the real estate side of things where we're like, well, I have to door knock and I have to like drop off this door hanger and I've got to talk to people and ask them if they want to sell real estate. But like, no, you don't. You could
yeah,
also just door knock, introduce yourself to people,
yeah,
tell them that you live in this neighborhood and that you've got a full list of vendors if they ever need anything. You could just introduce yourself and then
sure,
you just go walking all the time so that they continue to see your face, right? Like you don't have to do the things the exact way that you think that you have to. You can just
right,
settle into the things that you're better at. And like you didn't want to door knock as a real estate agent, but you
right.
don't mind door knocking trying to run for city council, right? Because it's just a different want and it's a different, but now would you door knock for real estate?
Sure.
Okay.
I think
Good answer.
and that's what I was saying. Like for me, then it was like the daunting thing of like when you talked about knocking at first, it was kind of like, oh my God, it seemed like it was unattainable.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, because we tend to, and I think you and I said this too the other day, is like we tend to put like the shiny thing in front of us of like, oh, well, I'll just spend $600 on 200 postcards that go out to 5 streets. Instead, you can go and have, three or 4,000 post or 4x9 cards made for about $700 and walk your city. So the money is there. The time that we have to put behind it is there. Not that you have to do it 8 hours a day. You can do it a couple hours here and there, but then you just mark it off on the map. But like you and I have just basically also talked about like sometimes people put their face like, who are like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy the advertisement at the library, right? And that's great. It goes up, and then you're just like a face amongst many. But what if you had like walked your city and you put the postcards out and people are meeting you, and then you bought that, and then all of a sudden you're like somebody's walking around, they're like, man, this guy's everywhere. Like he's been at my house 3 times. Now he's here in the library. Like you just start to give the appearance that you are the expert in your
It's
community.
weird if I don't sell my house with them now, right? Like it's
Even
weird
for
for
them.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And I
Yeah.
think we do things on like a small scale, but what if we did things on like a massive scale? And that's kind of like the thing, and not thinking anybody what they're doing. But I use the example of like, people who are like, oh, I bought 100 pumpkins and I put them on a wagon and I walk around the community every year and I pass out a pumpkin. Great. I've seen those stories. I think it's fun. And you spend hundreds of dollars for the pumpkins, and then one day it pays off. And that's the story that typically the punchline that you would get in a lot of those stories is like, 2 years later, I got a call from Susie 5 houses away who loved our pumpkin and I didn't get it out there in time. She called me. He's like, hey, is my pumpkin coming in the next year? She listed her house with me. But I think there's ways for us to get out there and do a little bit more groundwork, to do more groundwork and get involved with the community. So lean into where your superpowers are. There's a lot of opportunities for us. The community centers, I did this before I was running for city council, but I called bingo for our seniors. And the group of seniors, some of them will still live in their homes. And I'm in front of them once a month. I bring cookies. They like to think that they're the best cookies. I don't know why.
They
They're just,
probably love you. I bet seniors love you.
yeah. But it's free. You
Yeah.
you basically go to the senior, or here at least you go and you sign up because they need people who will come in and volunteer or sponsor. They put our KW Living, no logo. It's just written out that we're the sponsor of it. You go and you're there for an hour and a half with them. You get to chat with them. You get to hear their story. And to me, over time, that's the rapport that you're looking for because a lot of them, their kids still live here. You see them out at the grocery store. And now when I'm walking the city, I've run into a few of them. They'll open up their door and you'll see them and they start, oh yeah, look at you when you coming back to bingo. So maybe I'm the bingo guy. I don't know.
You're the bingo guy that walks houses.
Yeah,
Yeah, agreed. I think that anything you can do to pull things from past life and past experiences. And I do think like a lot of our Mark, what is it called? We're not allowed to use the word drunk monkey. Our limiting beliefs and our drunk monkeys come from the fact that we just get so holed up in what we think we should be doing and not just like being us, and people will be attracted to you and your personality and your energy and everything that you're doing. So I had one more thing I just wanted to share, and this came from that book that I was talking about. And again, it just has like 12 soft skills that like sometimes we don't think about. We're talking things like personality and confidence, but there's actually 12 soft skills that you can practice and hone in on that will set you up differently than other people in this industry and in the world, in my opinion. And I think you get to pick and choose which ones you're really good at. But in my opinion, if you're going to walk away with anything from this, I think you pick and choose a few that you're not very good at, and then you get intentional about moving that needle a little bit, right? So in a market, in my opinion, that has never been more relational, it is our job. Dialogues are great. Framework is very important. It builds confidence, but I think those soft skills that remind people that we're human and being authentic are the important ones. So I'm going to read through some of these. And I still think you should read the book. And then Sean, you can just kind of add things in if you want to. Does that sound okay?
sure.
Okay, so the first one in the book is be the fast. And so the lesson here is like top leaders are decisive and they're also responsive, and it doesn't take them very long to do things. So like thinking through, and this is stuff is easy, thinking through responding to clients, responding to leads, like understanding market changes. It builds trust with clients. Obviously, you don't want to be waiting. I did just lead a training at Living last week, and I did say whoever has the most time and the most pause wins in negotiations. But I think when we think about responding to leads, responding to our database, getting back with our clients, being the fast is something that we take for granted. If you are on this call, like and you are the fast, I am the fast, okay? For good or for bad sometimes, by the way. There's a bad part of this. If you respond too quickly and then you're like, maybe I should have taken some more time to think on that. But if you are the fast, that is a skill that is not widely done, I think, by a lot of people. And so I think if you can do that in this industry and you can utilize that soft skill, that will help you. Anything to add there, Sean?
It's funny because I think the one thing I think most of us probably enjoy about real estate is that every deal is different
Mhm.
and unique. And I just kind of go back to, I agree. Sometimes if you've got to know who your client is, right? So when you're first meeting with people, they're also, like I said, interviewing you. So do they, I don't know, sometimes I build like a narrative around them, right? So they want to know they're working with somebody successful, right? So they're somebody who, who will pick up the phone, who will respond to them, but they also, it's kind of a little leery sometimes when you like jump on it right away.
Yeah.
So
Don't
it's
be
also
weird.
just kind of like playing it out. And sometimes I just work in the conversations, I'll call them back. I'll like set a timer to, get them back in touch with them, like let's say in 45 minutes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's kind of like that chase. Like we're
100%.
building somebody and you want to just kind of keep putting that rope out there and it's like, oh well, I want to go show them houses but I don't want them to seem like I'm willing and ready right now, so I'm like, all right, I'm looking at my calendar, I've got a few clients that I'm working with, time is booking up, I could probably do it this day or that day, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden it gives them the urgency of like, okay, yeah, 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 if you can just lock us in for that 2 hours and then we can find the three houses that we're going to go look at, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
um,
Because you're decisive, right? Like you're not waiting 24 hours and then reaching back out to them to schedule. You're just saying like I'm going to respond to you right now and I can't meet right now.
yeah.
Don't
Right,
be
right, exactly.
yeah.
And just want that there so that they want to resonate with you a little bit more. So yes, I think getting back to people in a timely manner is most important for us. But also that courting relationship, I think, is, the game that we got to play. And eventually you get to know who's in charge. Like oftentimes we go through some of these calls and things and it's trying to figure out, is the husband driving the ship? Is the wife driving the ship? Is the father-in-law who's really controlling the process? And then you start to really shift your conversations into power play to that person. Because after you realize the dynamic between that couple, then when you shift it, the person who's not the alpha understands that you've now shifted to the alpha and they allow that to happen. So
Right.
it's an interesting thing to find those plays, but that's a strength we all have. We all know, who we're talking to. And after a couple of, phone calls, you can tell who's in charge or how many emails you get back or the text messages or the tone, who you gotta please and whatnot. So
Yeah. How many times have you heard somebody say, or like if they picked you to sell their house or they picked you to help them buy a house, how many times have you heard somebody say to you, Sean, like, I picked you because you're so honest, or I picked you because I appreciated your honesty throughout this transaction or throughout the conversation at the listing presentation?
okay, that's an interesting one. I've never had anyone say like, because you're so honest. Like
What?
yeah, like, oh, you're so honest,
Okay.
like pinch my cheek type of thing.
Okay, not in a weird way.
Oh, okay. No, I
Sean's
mean,
just lying. It's fine.
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I think they are satisfied with the service that they receive. So
Hmm.
I think I can use an example. So right now I have a client who's in Dubai and one who's in Lebanon. So it's a husband and wife. So there's, so in that instance, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes to have phone calls or WhatsApp or Zoom because that's accommodating to them
Sure.
in that instance. But in this case, what I'm trying to get across is I allowed them to steer the ship for the listing price and against what we had done. So now I'm at that stern phase of the process where it's like, hey, this is what you said. We've run the gamut. Now here's where we're going. So I don't know that they would say like, hey, you were honest. I think that they would say, all right, thank you for showing us. You did everything you could over the past 3 weeks, but now we're under contract, not the price we wanted, but the price that we'll, gladly accept. Um,
But
so
I think
anyway,
I think setting the clear expectations up front, like so maybe it's not so much the honesty side of it, but setting the clear expectations. And so I don't know if anybody else on this call has heard it because obviously Sean hasn't, but I feel like sometimes people are like, no, I like you for your honesty. Like I like you because you're not like blowing smoke about
oh,
what's going to happen during this transaction. So I think like setting clear expectations is something that people pull from other careers. And you can go
yeah.
in here. Again, it's not always a dialogue, it's not always framework, it's not always what they want to hear. It's setting the right expectations and being very clear upfront around like what happens if this doesn't happen, if we don't get this listing price, this is what's going to happen. Yes?
Yep. And again, I think it's all about like the expectations being clear, remembering who, for me, who's in charge in the sense that and I know maybe all of us here on the call have had a client where it's like, I'm looking for, a ranch, no basement, a detached garage. And then, then they'll come to you like 3 weeks later and they're like, hey, you never showed this house to me. You never even brought it to my attention. And I'm like, that's a duplex. I'm not a duplex. That's a split level, 4 bedrooms, basement, whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you never showed it to me. So oftentimes in our world, I feel like we take it personal.
Hmm.
Like I'm trying to do the best job I can do for you, but I think the best case for us is to pivot. So the minute one of those situations happens, you just own it. You just take that bullet and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That must have slipped my radar. I will definitely go back and readjust what I'm looking at because I think that goes a long way too, whether it falls under the honesty thing or not. But like eating it a little bit, it's not my job to argue with them that they woke up and decided they want to go look at a split level and not a ranch.
Yeah.
And then I set the appointment, we go look, and then it gets added in, and then we just then I know that in 3 days I highlight another split level, and
Well,
then
and that's
they,
one of them is like be curious, but then stay curious, right? Because like I think when you ask good questions in the beginning, you can uncover some things. But then I think sometimes we don't ask more questions 3 or 4 houses in, right? To uncover more things from that. So some of that, not that that could have been saved by any means, but like being curious and then staying curious throughout the process. Like people do walk through a few different houses and then decide that they want something else, right?
sure.
Or it's like the wedding dress where everybody's like, I want the mermaid gown. And then they go full ballroom, if any of these guys that are on camera know what that means. Right. And so, like, I do think, like, being, Sean's like, what are we talking about? Wedding gowns. It's a long time ago. Being curious and staying curious, I think, is another one that just allows you to ask the right questions, get clear guidance, set expectations, do things like that.
Yeah, trust the process. If you try to rush it, it's not going to work. Trust the process, trust yourself. You know, the thing too that I've been like with ACAR advocating for and a few others that we were talking to is when you get into this business and you're told that you're a CEO, it means 100 things to 100 different people. Um, but I was saying there's some key things that I feel like are missing for new agents or even like agents that have been in for 5 years and under. And it's like the gain good relationship with a lawyer, a good CPA, and a good person to plan your 401k. And the reason why I bring that up is like somewhere in your business, you're gonna need to lean on a lawyer to kind of ask a question. So why not build a relationship now, help them in, and have that person help you incorporate into what you're doing. Your CPA, I jokingly say Aunt Susie does our taxes and she's done a great job. But now that you're running a business, you want to seek out somebody who's able to help you identify some of your um, vulnerabilities in tax code, and nobody wants to pay more than they have to. So that, and then the last one, I hear people again always joking about you never go to a realtor's retirement party, um, and I think there's some truth to that. I've never been invited to one personally, but I think there's truth to that because people are not realizing like I have to put away, X amount of percent. So if you have those three components as well, that puts you on your path with your advisors. So if you're the CEO, and then you have those three people that you can call on and lean on to help you guide you, I think are pivotal and important too.
Agreed. And things that people don't think about either when they're coming from other careers and
Well,
things.
well, because we're like, oh, we gotta get that commission. And then, you don't realize people, if you're coming from like a corporate world, where your company used to take out your taxes, they used to take out your medical, they used to do all of that other stuff, put your money in your 401k. It was mystical and magical that it all got done. But now you're in charge. So, making the best of that.
Agreed. All right, I'm gonna hit two more of these and then we'll be done. So, and I think Sean, you might be able to hit on this one a little bit too, but one of them is being self-aware. So, do you guys do a lot with the disc? And I'm talking about like you specifically, Sean, like when you're again, I think one of the superpowers that we can utilize that a lot of us don't utilize is when we are sitting across the table from somebody, mirror and matching, being self-aware, understanding who you are, and then understanding who's across the table. And I think some of that comes into like who is the decision maker. What are like the one or two things that you're looking for in the beginning as you're being like self-aware, understanding your personality versus their personality to connect with somebody?
Yeah. So no matter when I'm meeting with a buyer, we'll talk about them first because the BBA I know was brought up before, but um, it's again, I'm going to go back to running for office. So when you show up and you run for office with somebody and you're at their door, they don't know who you are. So even to prompt them to ask you a question about the city that they live in is very hard because, it throws them on the spot. It puts them in a bad way. But if you leave them with that piece of material and you say, I'll be back in a couple of weeks and then we can maybe talk about something. And then when you circle back, then they might have something they want to talk to you about versus like, hey, I was here and I tried to talk to you for 5 seconds. I take that same approach with my BBAs. So I tend to send them out to everybody in advance, right? So if I'm going to meet with you, you get a blank copy. There's no numbers in there. I send you what a contract looks like that we have and all that other stuff. And then when we meet, I have copies for it in here. But it is, because normally we're either meeting at a library or a coffee shop or whatever along those lines. And my goal in that 15 minutes is to get to know who they are. So I want to identify, yes, as quickly as I can, who's the decision maker, their timeline, their objectives, and the overall goal that they're looking to from me, right? And how that I can approach. And sometimes even at the end of those meetings, I don't get the I don't want to be the pushy person if I'm
Mhm.
not getting that from them. And I've found that that has won me more favor by not putting a piece of paper in front of them to show up.
Do you
Now,
ever put a piece of, do you ever put the piece of paper in front of them? If it feels like you can, do you?
oh yeah, yeah. If they're like, this is awesome, this is great. Now like there's some people who want to go look at a house in 30 minutes.
Sure.
They've got a sign.
Yep.
But there's other people who want to take the methodical time. It builds me, and I've used this in real life. It's built me favor to not hesitate, but to send it to them in advance so they already had a chance to look at it. Chances of people really reading all that stuff is slim. But then they
Mhm.
had the hard copy. We kind of go over the highlighted parts that I put in. But I talk to them too because oftentimes we put in there like, oh, I get 3%, or whatever the deal is, or you get 12 chickens or whatever you guys get. I don't know. I know we can't talk about numbers, but my saying is sometimes, or not sometimes, all the time when I talk to the people, because I sign a 6 month deal, part of my spiel to them is like within the 6 month period of time, if I haven't produced or whatever, we'll re-up it. But if I do, and I have shown you, and we have made, some progress, or we've, written offers, or we've withdrawn, or whatever the process might be, um, my percentage goes up. And I make that very well known, like at the very beginning. So
Hmm.
like it shows, again, I'm building my value to them. Like this is what we're
And your
doing. But then,
confidence.
right, in 6 months. So when it comes back, and I've had this happen 3 times this year where it's come back and we sign for another time and their percentage goes up and they're fully aware of it. First, like, being nervous of like, okay, so because now I've shown you my worth, where, and they know that we've seen, six houses or we've written two offers that they've pulled back out of one, they backed out after the inspection. So they've known that that has happened. It's not like, this person's never seen a house before and all of a sudden 6 months later we showed them one and now I'm trying to jack their price. But I think it all goes back to the value that we bring to the table.
Love it. Agreed. I think that goes with the confidence level as well. Which is one of them, which is be confident, but it says, but humble, right? So people lean into confidence, not arrogance. Obviously, we know that. But I do think like anytime you can go in there and show that you're confident, even if you're confident in yourself more than selling their house, if you walk in there with that, you have a better shot every single time. And then the last one on here that I was just gonna hit is just be different. So like it says unicorns don't blend in, like they stand out with authenticity, right? So, like, how do you make sure that whether you're the first person in the door or the last person, whether you're the first agent that's called them after their house expired or the last agent, like, how do you set yourself apart? So I guess, Sean, if I was going to ask you how you set yourself apart from other agents very quickly in an appointment, like, what do you do to be different? Or on the phone, like, what are you doing that stands out?
Yeah. So, I would say when if it's on the phone and if let's just say I'm calling an expired or something along those lines, this isn't again creating a wheel. This is just kind of sticking with the spokes and what works for you. But you just get when you get them on the phone, you just quickly acknowledge of like, hey, you've probably received 300 phone calls from 300 agents today. No big deal. I'm just letting you know your house got done. I did a quick comp. I'm gonna drop this off for you. I'm just gonna tuck it in your door and then I'll call you back in a couple days. I don't really let them get much of a conversation, right? I just want them to hear because they've most likely have gotten maybe 4 or 5 phone calls before me, or maybe I'm the first, but I still pretend like I know you've gotten a lot of these calls, and I just want to let you know if your house is still for sale, this is what I came up with. I might have somebody, but I just want to put it in your door and let me know what you think. So when I call back, now they're more susceptible to taking my call because one,
Well,
I showed up to their house. And two, now I'm calling them back. So now I've done two things that showed them a little bit more trust than maybe their agent who they were working with did at that time. Um, but I think it's again just kind of playing to that. And then I think if you're going on the buyer broker deal, what makes you different is, what I said before. When you're sitting down with a new buyer who you've never met before, again, we all want to come in with our folder packet and say, here's what we got to go through. But I think by being different is again walking away from the table without making somebody sign it. If there's somebody who's like again, it's leaning into your intuition. So if you're having a great conversation with somebody and you're like, yeah, we're jiving, we should just pull this out right now, type in write in the numbers, sign it, we'll scan it and be done. But then there's times too, again, with the courting process, people want to know you a little bit better. And so, you
well,
come
and
back.
looking at different disc personalities, the high D probably just wants you to slide it across the table, and the high S and the high C don't. And the C personality, and I apologize if not everybody follows the disc on here, but that's a different class. The C personality is going to need to think it over, read it over, talk to 4 people about it, and then come back to you, right? And so, like, again, like sort of reading that room and connecting with people is something that, again, we're taught how to do a listing presentation, we're taught how to do a buyer consultation. And yet every single person does it differently. Because if you slide that paperwork across, sometimes you're going to get it signed and sometimes you're going to offend somebody, right? And so really being able to say, yes, it's appropriate right now, or no, it's not appropriate. I think the second part of that, and you said this when you were talking about maybe calling the expired listing, is most people are trying to hit it on the first one because they know that they can't follow up or they're not going to remember to, right? Like follow up is its own soft skill in real estate that nobody does. And
Yeah.
so I guarantee you, if you can be the person that follows up every single time, you're doing more than half of the agents in the industry. It's why they need to get the document signed the first time because they know they won't follow up or they have good intentions, but then they don't, right? So if you can just be the agent that does the first thing and then knows to follow up, like that's not in the book, but that's a soft skill all on its own is the follow up in this industry.
Yeah. And when you're doing it too, like, you can come in hard, but oftentimes I'll just be when I call or something along those lines, I'll be like, hey, this is Sean. Oh no, I would say like, oh, hey, Danielle, this is Sean. So do you have a few minutes for me to introduce myself? It throws them off, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, you want to
Well, it's
introduce
rude if I
yourself.
say no,
Right.
right? Yeah.
You set it up where it's rude. Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, I've got a few minutes. And then I go into my spiel about like, hey, I know you've probably gotten a lot of phone calls. I'm with Sean, da 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 da. Da. I'm just going to drop something off. Again, the goal is to like not really let them have much time to talk or think about it. They just kind of get off the phone and they're like, okay, whatever that was, and just chalk it up to one of the 800 that called me. But then
Yeah.
when you do the other things, it kind of clicks in a little bit more. And then they're able to go back. I also do something too with like open houses. So when people are in the open house, I always try to find a way to make people linger a little bit longer.
Hmm.
So if you're in the open house, there are people who don't want to give you their information, rightfully so, rightful, right? Like, what am I giving it to? Where are you going to put my phone number? How many times, what telemarketer is going to call me? They get a lot
Right.
of that. But you do build a rapport over time when people come through the open house and they have like a kid and then you've got a coloring page and you're like, oh, I'm doing a coloring page contest and they, fill it out and then everybody gets like a little gift card or whatever that you mail out. Thanks so much. Little Susie gets $1 off for popcorn or something. I don't know. But my point in saying that is like trying to keep them lingering around to continue building that rapport, not to necessarily chase them through the primary bedroom, then down to the basement, but just to kind of like pop up in helpful spots. And then leave things out. So like, if they're there without their agent or if they're not something there, like oftentimes we come fully prepared. We've got the residential property disclosure, we got the lead disclosure, we've got the POS, we've got everything. But I want to be able to reach back out to them. So I can say like, oh, I can send you the property disclosure if you just leave me your email. I will get
Mhm.
that to you. But the best thing to do too is capture their phone number. Like I'll send you a text right now. What's your number? Pull out your phone. And now with Forewarn, you just plug their phone number into Forewarn. And now you've got their full name and their address, right? So
Stalking without stalking, of course. Usually it's utilizing our resources.
exactly. But then we talked about sending them something.
Right.
So, now they want to get something. And the reality is it could be like this. Hey, Danielle, it's Sean, we met there. What's your email? If I don't hear back from you, sometimes people don't want to do that. Now you have the address. You can go ahead and still put it in the mail, sending
Yeah.
it this way. So you just keep touching the people until they eventually say yes or get out of here.
Yes, buy or die. Okay. I just had ChatGPT run a few things, so I wanted to read it off. So again, I think a big piece of our limiting beliefs in real estate or hitting any ceiling comes from the fact that we think that we know that there's a model, we know that there's a system to do things, and yet I think we underutilize us as humans a lot of times too, and our superpowers. And so I think anything, any sort of industry that you came from or life beforehand, if you were a stay-at-home mom or parent, you probably have all the superpowers, but anything that you came from, I think, can be utilized in this. So I would just encourage you to go into ChatGPT and say in a past life, right now I'm a real estate agent. Hopefully ChatGPT already knows that, but right, beforehand, I was a teacher or I was in the healthcare industry. Can you tell me what superpowers or what skills I can use from that industry in real estate? Or maybe what lead generation tactics are best for me based on what I used to do, right? So I just pulled up a few superpowers. And so it says if you were a teacher, you have patience, you can break down complex processes, you're going to be really good at guiding clients step by step. Classroom management equals transaction management, right? If you come from hospitality or a restaurant, if you were a server beforehand, right? Like customer service, upselling without pressure, conflict resolution, handling difficult people with grace, like so important, right? I mean, it went so far. There's marketing things in here. Stay-at-home parent has time management, multitasking, conflict resolution, patience, teaching, budgeting is another one. So, anyways, my encouragement is as you think through your career in real estate, yes, we need framework. Yes, we need dialogue. Yes, we need scripts. Yes, we need all those things. Yes, we need systems. Yes, we need models. There's a right way to do a lot of things, but really leaning into who you are as a person and the things that give you energy and what you're really good at. I would encourage you to build your business plan a little bit more around that versus what you think you should be doing in real estate. Like to Sean's point, don't do all the shiny things. Don't go buy all the postcards and go sign up for the $4,000 website and do all these things that feel super inauthentic. Like find some of the things that you're really good at and give you energy and come from your heart and build your business around that a little bit more. So, Sean, any parting words?
No, I think the only thing I will say is to everybody here and beyond, like you've got it. You are the vessel that can move forward and to lean into what you did in the past to be successful. And success is everybody's own benchmark. Because again, some of those crazy statistics is, most real estate agents sell one house a year or something like that. You guys know
Yeah.
this, right? So if that's our benchmark, be more successful than most and sell two or three and get the rhythm and the cadence underneath you, and you will see like a successful path moving forward. But believe in your abilities and don't try to be something that's not. So that's why I said earlier about Jordan. I'm not a runner, right? So if I try to communicate to somebody in that way, it's inauthentic.
Yeah.
It's just that's how it is. Jordan, on the other hand, he can talk about it all day long and then pepper in real estate and somebody who understands that skill set that he has of running, they're gonna, you know, sign up with him every day of the week, versus me because it would seem inauthentic. So be your authentic self. I know we all hear that stuff. It's cliche. Don't buy the shiny stuff. Um, keep moving forward. I would say, people, you've got this.
And I think what Dana just said, like she said something about like what you said about the following up, but like follow up is the most important soft skill that you can have in this industry. We talk about it, you hear it, but not all of us are 100% good at it. So if you're not good at it, find somebody that is good at it and go hire them because it's not always our best soft skill that we can utilize. So either find a way to get better at it and or go hire somebody to do that for you because I think that is one of the most important soft skills that we have in this industry that is underutilized. Cool.
Agree.
All right, y'all. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you on
Thank
the
you.
next K1 event. Have a great weekend. See you guys.
Thanks.